This is Tim Wells with ClickFunnels and Click Designs, and I'm here in the fabulous Getterwood Studios. And today we're going to be looking at image file formats. We are going to be focused on the SVG format, but we're also going to be looking at the characteristics of JPEG and PNG image formats as well. And so, as is the tradition here at ClickFunnels and Click Designs, there'll be no fancy jump cuts, no flashbang effects, nothing but a straight up video because I'm the most non-gimmicky person on the internet. With that, we're going to start looking at some image formats, their characteristics, and we will lead up to working with SVG files. This is Tim Willis, and today we're going to talk about using SVG files. But before we do that, we need to get some background and talk about JPEG and PNG files so we can understand the difference between most three common file types. And so I'm here in ClickFunnels 2.0. We're in the editor with a page that's completely blank, and we'll start off by putting something on the page. And this is just going to be something simple. We're going to add a full section. We're going to add a 2-column row, and we will add an image element to each of the 2 columns. And that's all we're going to put on this page. It's just basically sort of a little work lab we're going to use, and we'll have these filled out in a little bit. Before we do that, I'm going to go to Groove AI, which is ChatGPT with a shell and some extra tools over it. And I did a little quick search, not too involved, on the internet to try to get some definition on between JPEGs and PNGs. And so basically, JPEG files are the best files if you want to retain pictures and have them be full quality and very crisp graphic and edges. So it says here they excel in capturing vivid photographs and detailed graphics with smaller file sizes, making them ideal for sharing and displaying high quality values online. On the other hand, PNG files preserve transparency and support a wide range of colors with impeccable precision. They are the go-to choice for graphics that require transparent background or crisp edges. And so that is where we're going to start with just our JPEG and our PNG files. One thing you have to understand about this, and I relate it to Adobe products, is JPEG and PNG format files operate off pixels, which can be stretched, and if you stretch them too far, they can be distorted. And so JPEG and PNG files are like Adobe Photoshop. SVG files, which we'll talk about later, are based on vectors, and you can't stretch a vector. So with that beginning, let's go ahead and look at the JPEG and PNG files. So let's go to ClickFunnels, and I'm going to load up a JPEG file, and I'm going to go to a folder I have prepared for this little demonstration. And this is just a JPEG that I downloaded from somewhere on the internet. It serves our purposes. We'll put it there, and you can see it's a JPEG. We can resize it, do whatever we want. It's got nice definition on the picture. Now the other option would be this option here, and I could just load the PNG version of this I made earlier, but I think we're going to go ahead and show something else while we're at it. Sometimes you want to convert a JPEG to a PNG file, and there's several ways you can do that. Now you can't do this within ClickFunnels 2.0. You can do it in a lot of photo editors and graphics programs, but there's an easier way if you just need to make that change. And it's also an unusual way for me because it's one of the few things that I actually will use Canva for, because I'm not a Canva fanboy, as controversial as that may be, but nothing is totally irredeemable, and it does have a few features that I do use. So this is one of those cases. So if we go to Google and we type in convert JPEG to PNG in Canva, it will generally bring up this link, and we'll just click on it, and then we can upload our image. And so we'll go ahead and do that. Again, we will go with our JPEG, put it in there, and it's going to go to work. And now we can download it as a PNG. Now the only kind of catch on here with Canva is that everything it downloads when we do that is going to title it Untitled Design. So if you were doing several pictures at once, that could get ugly because they'd all have the same file name. We'll go grab that out of our downloads and we'll stick it into our folder here that we're working with, and I'll go ahead and rename it. And boom, just like that, we're ready to upload it into ClickFunnels. And let me try to raise the screen size a little bit here. I know from previous experience that we can't go past 200 or it will give us a message about our browser not supporting that activity. So here we are at 175 magnification, and I don't know how well this shows up on your computer screen, but the JPEG definitely is a little more defined as far as the picture than the PNG. PNG isn't bad, but it's a little more blurry on the edges than the JPEG. To maintain your photo quality, JPEG is definitely going to be your go-to, but you can't make a JPEG transparent, which brings us to our next part of this. And we could do this in Canva, but it requires a Canva Pro account, which I believe is $12 a month or something like that. I could do it in Click Designs, but I would have to use a credit in the AI add-on, and I don't want to do that because what I'm trying to do is get a free option that everybody can use. That website is called Adobe Express. To get Adobe Express, and Adobe Express is basically Adobe's free option to Canva, and like Canva, it has a free and a pro version. It's a nice little program, got a lot of stuff there, and it's worth checking out. But the only thing we're going to check out today is the one feature I actually use the most, which is a free feature as of today, February 24th, 2024. And so we come to this toolbar of suggested quick actions, and the first item says remove background. And so we'll click on that and we'll see an interface not much different than what we saw in Canva. We're going to go ahead and load up that picture, the PNG, drop it in, and Adobe Express will go to work, and you see it's removed the background. And so we can download that. Now, like Canva, this has a catch on it if you're going to do several pictures at once, in that it retains the same file name that the file had, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but just be aware of that. Get it out of our downloads. I'm going to briefly put it on the desktop to rename, and then drop it in the folder I'm working out of. Okay, and you see here that it now has a transparent background. And so let's go ahead into ClickFunnels, and we're going to take our magnification down to 100%. Get rid of the PNG that's in here and replace it with the one that has a transparent background. And boom, there we go. We have a transparent background on our PNG now. And so just remember, you can do that with a PNG, but not with a JPEG. And the other thing with these background removers is they can cause a lot of distortion in your picture. I mean, and you can get weird effects too. So if you look here, because we don't have the water here that's covering up this rock, we kind of have this weird look down here where it tried to fill it in and guess at what it would look like, and it basically took off that shadow reflection. So having transparent background can be great. It also can go sideways on you too. It all depends. But that is kind of our discussion on the JPEG and PNG files and how we can use them, and how we can also make PNGs transparent. So with that, we are actually ready to move on to talking about the SVG files. So now we're finally going to look at the SVG files. So I've gone back to Groove AI to some of this information I looked up, and an SVG file stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. So the thing about Scalable Vector Graphics is they are based on vectors and not pixels. Vectors don't stretch, and so you don't get the distortion, but vectors keep their shape no matter what size you make the image versus the stretching you get with a JPEG or a PNG. Think of JPEG and PNG as Adobe Photoshop. Think of SVGs as Adobe Illustrator. That's why you'll find a lot of times they will use SVG images instead of the JPEG or the PNG. There are a lot of free websites where you can download SVG images, but there's sort of a little hiccup there, and let me demonstrate what that hiccup is. What we're looking at is some SVG image files that I downloaded for free from a website. Here we got a bunch of folders, so it's quite a large file. It took a while to download. So let's go ahead and look at something. Let's go to nature. Open up that folder. And so there's not too many in here. There's what, about 10, something like that. But you see that each one of these has that little swirly Microsoft Edge HTML document symbol, and then it has a name. But you can't see what the image is unless you load it into an editor can read that image, or you put it into a web page like in ClickFunnels, for example. And so that can cause a real problem, because if you use a tool like CSS Peeper, it will rename all those files assets. So you'll have asset 0, asset 1, asset 2, asset 3, and so on, how many SVG files you have. And you can't tell one from the other unless you load it up. And so that is sort of the downside of working with the SVG files. So the question is, how do we actually see what the SVG files actually look like, especially when they may have some crazy names? Now this one I just copied and pasted into a folder, and we see this folder again when you're working with the JPEGs and PNGs. And of course it's pretty obvious it's Adobe, and these are like brand names, which is the folder I came this from. So it's probably going to be like a trademark brand name kind of thing. I haven't actually viewed it yet. There's a couple of ways we can go about seeing that, especially if we have a bunch of files that are SVG and got crazy file names. One thing, we can just click on it. Let's try a couple of these, see what happens. Let's try LibreOffice Draw. Okay, and then there is what our SVG actually looks like, and that's fine, but it's going to be sort of a pain in the butt to do that. So that's sort of one way you go about it, is just view it. And you can also open with different programs. Let's try something else here. Wow, I still got an icon of Internet Explorer on here. Damn. That's out of date. Let's try Google Chrome. Same thing, it comes up as on a tab on the browser. Now alternatively, we could do a search in, say, convert SVG to PNG in Canva. And it brings us up this conversion box that we saw earlier when we were working with the JPEGs and PNGs. And so let's go ahead and give that a shot here. Now a bit of warning on this is I found that while this usually works, it doesn't always work for some reason. But I would say it's effective 90% of the time. Alright, and there is our SVG, and we can see what it looks like. If we wanted to, we could convert that to a PNG or a JPEG if we wanted to. We're not going to do that. Okay, And then the third and ultimate way of doing this is, let's go ahead and get rid of our JPEG here. And our third way of doing this is in the ClickFunnels 2.0 editor itself. So let's go ahead. We're back to the page where we have the JPEG on the left, the PNG on the right. And let's go ahead and go into our settings for our JPEG. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. And then we will bring up our image gallery and load up our SVG. And you see it took a little while for it to process all that HTML code, but it did get there. And we click on that, and boom, now we have that in our image element. Now you notice that it is much bigger there. Let's take a look here at our size. It's at 100% now. We can go ahead and shrink that down to whatever size we need. Looks like about 73% would be about right in this case. Let's make it full. And that's how you can do it. As I said, the most basic way is going to be just to load the thing up in ClickFunnels 2.0 in your images and do it that way. But if you're doing a whole bunch that got that kind of swirly icon and they just got a bunch of file names and you have to sort them out, you may want to try a different method, and then figure out what they are and maybe rename them to a more friendly name that makes sense to you. But that is basically our SVGs and how we use them. We also went over the JPEGs and the PNGs and how to convert them. And of course here, this is a totally different kind of file. But anyway, that is our little discussion on the file types, and we wanted to get to explain the SVG files. And as I said, the biggest problem with SVG files is that although there are a lot of sites where you can get them for free, is they'll just have that swirly Microsoft Edge HTML symbol and a name, and if the name doesn't make sense, then you don't know what it is. And some programs like CSS People will just number them as asset 01, asset 02, or something like that, and then it's like you're really lost. So that is the little discussion today on the three major type of image files, how to work with them, how to use them. And so I hope that's helpful. So that's it for today. And my name is Tim Willis, and I am a certified ClickFunnels professional. I also make tutorial and demonstration videos on my YouTube and Facebook channels. And my Facebook channel is, of course, ClickFunnels and Click Designs. And so that is it for the video for today. I hope that was helpful, and we'll see you next time.